Good evening. My name is Sherry Sultani, and you're watching Pavas TV and a Skyrise Media Society. Today, we have invited Member of Parliament Bonita Zarrillo to discuss about her 2025 re-election campaign, focusing on her vision, plans, and the NDP's priority for the community. Please stay tuned. Hi, Bonita. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, this is our, I think, third time that the Skyrise Media Society and Pavas TV interview you, so it's our pleasure always.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for covering such important local stories.
Thank you. Now, Bonita, I know that you're rerunning again. So, what inspired you to seek re-election in 2025, and how has your experience as an MP shaped your vision for Port Moody and Coquitlam?
Well, I'm running again for Canadians. We did so many things as the NDP. We had so many wins for Canadians in the 44th Parliament, and actually the most productive Parliament in the last generation since Tommy Douglas and his healthcare in the universal healthcare. So we got the largest expansion to healthcare with the dental care and the pharmacare. We were able to secure the childcare strategy, which is including up $10 a day childcare for families. And we were able to strengthen labor laws for workers. So we got many things done, and we're not done yet. So there's more work to do, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Bonita. And what are the key properties you plan to focus on our community if you're reelected?
Mhm. Well, certainly the NDP is a workers' party. We are the only workers' party in Canada, and we stand up for workers. And who would have known that we would be getting this threat from the United States, the tariff threat from the United States, which really does have an impact on our economy and workers. So certainly this has become forefront in the campaign and also in the plan for workers. The NDP have a long history of wanting to have some reforms on employment insurance as well. So it's very important that we're supporting workers, that we bring back Build Canada, Made in Canada, value add jobs and manufacturing here in Canada, and very important that we have the safety net of a good employment insurance plan for Canadians. So I think that is definitely something that we didn't expect to come into this election with, but certainly is very, very important and will be important for New Democrats to be there to support workers.
It is definitely
Healthcare,
important.
yes, and I'm hearing that on the door too, Sherry, that folks are concerned. What is our economy going to be? And I know that there were decades of conservative and liberal governments. You know, the governments federally have always been conservative or liberal, and they haven't been able to make these strides for workers. They haven't brought jobs to our communities. They've actually offshored them more than any other government. So we have that to do. And then
Very good.
healthcare, and yeah.
Before we get to the healthcare, I would like to hear about the housing affordability, because that
Yeah.
housing affordability remains a major concern in Port Moody and Coquitlam, obviously. What concrete actions will you and the NDP takes to ensure more affordable housing and better protection for renters?
Well, what we've seen from the Liberals and the Conservatives, that fully market housing doesn't work for everyone. And in fact, 4 decades, 40 years of a focus on only market housing has brought us the most expensive housing in history. So we know that we need to diversify in the housing market. We need more purpose-built rental. We need more co-op housing. We need more not-for-profit housing as it was 40 or 50 years ago, when we really knew that there was a component of housing that shouldn't be market housing.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the Liberals and the Conservatives have run on a market-only housing model for a long time, which has made some people very rich. The largest real estate investment
Yeah.
trusts, some of the largest developers have become very rich, but it's been off the backs of everyday
Mm-hmm.
Canadians. And if I think about here in Port Moody, Coquitlam, I'm the seniors critic for the NDP as well. And I hear from seniors so often that they're being displaced from their affordable rental housing, and they have nowhere to go. They cannot stay in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine, Sherry, to be 70 or even 80 and losing housing, because there is really no affordable housing for them to get back into. So the
Mm-hmm.
plan for the NDP is more co-op housing, more purpose-built rental, and more affordable rental housing. And for young people that want to get into the market, we want the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, to start working for individuals, for people, to be offering that same low interest financing for everyday Canadians, young people that want to get into the housing market, not
Yeah.
just for rich developers and those that benefit from these low
Yeah,
interest loans
especially the
that are
economy
all.
changing too. So that's like a very crucial matter for our community, at least. Now, many families are struggling because we were talking about economy and, raising and rising, cost of the living. Now, many families are struggling with the rising cost of living. And what policies will you push if you get reelected to provide relief of residents? Particularly for essential, needs for like groceries, transportation, and childcare.
Yeah, thank you for bringing those up in the grocery store. I mean, we feel it at the grocery stores. Every household has is feeling it at the grocery store, and some have really changed their eating patterns. And I think this was some of the first indications after COVID that corporate greed was really impacting the price of goods, and no more so than in the grocery stores, where they're bringing in billions of dollars of profits,
Hmm.
and people can't afford fresh fruit,
Yeah.
meat. So our policy is to price cap essential goods. They do it in Europe. It's absolutely something they can do. So price
Mhm.
capping essential goods on groceries. More investment in transportation. We know that both affordability and climate change, that we want to get more people changing their use of single cars and get into transit. So
Yeah.
operationally, the federal government needs to support with funds operationally. The NDP is supportive of investing operational funds for transportation.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. The public transit and public systems are crucial and for our growing community. And what investment or improvements you will advocate for in transportation and urban planning?
Well, I was and the infrastructure critic for the NDP, and many times I was standing up and in the House of Commons saying that we needed these operational funds here in Metro Vancouver. Folks in Metro Vancouver are already paying some of the highest housing prices,
Mhm.
some of the highest fuel prices, and they need a break on their transportation costs. So certainly, I'll be advocating for those operating funds.
Mhm.
And at the same time, the NDP wants Canadians not to have to pay the GST on essential items like transportation, cell phones, home heating, all of those essential needs for every Canadian.
Mhm. And that's in plan. That's like in place that to
Absolutely,
do.
to just to stop to cut the GST in all of those
Mhm.
areas, all of those essential areas. Canadians should not have to pay the GST.
Now, Bonita, let's talk about healthcare and social services. Now, you know that the overdose crisis continues to affect many communities, and that includes our community as well. What measures do you propose to address this crisis, and how will you support the harm of reduction of mental health and these initiatives?
Yes, I think that there are so many families right now that have been impacted by the toxic drug and the poisonous drug supply in Canada, and certainly we want everyone to be safe. Whether they're at home, whether they're out in the public realm, on transit, we certainly want everyone to be safe. And I acknowledge that some people don't feel safe when they are out in parks and on the street. So I want to acknowledge that. And I want to say that the NDP understands that there are forces and criminal forces that are out there targeting people and families with illicit and poison drugs. And we want to address that. We do not want the criminal element out there on our streets, but we also want for those that have been impacted and targeted that they get the care and the medical and health focused treatment that they require and need. So there's a healthcare focus on this for folks. And I think about the trade industry, Sherry. We know that we've had a lot of construction in this province, and tradespeople are being disproportionately impacted by this crisis. They get injured, there's pain, there's a lack of doctors, and then they end up potentially being exploited or becoming addicted to these painkillers. And we want to make sure that we're supporting tradespeople, that we are supporting workers that deserve care, and a doctor. So the NDP will make sure by 2030 that every Canadian has a doctor.
Oh, that would be nice. That's a good promise, actually. Now,
Mm,
last time we talked about seniors' dental care, and it actually, I saw the progress and it happened. Now, let's talk about access to healthcare remains a challenge, right? Especially for seniors and underserved group. What steps will you take to improve access to family doctors and healthcare services in our community and our region?
Sure. Well, we have a NDP provincial government who has already started this work, so that's great. We have had close to 1,000 now new healthcare workers that have come into the province, so that's wonderful. What the federal government can do is start making it easier for immigrants, doctors that are coming from other countries, healthcare workers that are coming from other countries, to be able to work here in Canada. And I know in my office here in Port Moody, Coquitlam, I've had doctors that have come from Europe, from Asia, that are unable to get access to those certifications to be able to work here in any capacity as a doctor or a healthcare provider. I also know that there are healthcare providers that have lived here for a decade or more who are ready to now get back to work, even though there were so many barriers in front of them, that they're still available and still want to work in this area. So we just need to make that path easier. The NDP want to make sure that certification becomes easier, and that it's not so cost prohibitive that immigrants can't do it. It's up to $10,000 a test
Mhm.
for immigrant doctors to come to Canada and get their certification. That's a big investment that we're
That is,
asking
yeah.
from people, and really unfair.
Thank you, Bonita. Now, what is your plan to support the small businesses and create good jobs in Port Moody, Coquitlam, especially in the face of economy uncertainty right now?
Mhm. And let's talk, like you said, locally about small businesses and medium sized businesses right here. I know that real estate, finding a storefront, finding an office has become so difficult with the price of land and the price of retail outlets and office buildings has become as prohibitive as housing. So we need to make some investments for real estate for small businesses. We need to make sure that we have caps on the prices of real estate. Some changes to the way that businesses pay for their real estate, the leasing. We need to make some changes there. And certainly the NDP knows that a small business employs more employees. But the number of small businesses, they employ more employees than large businesses that might have um, subsidiaries around the country. So we know that the small business environment is so important. We can make transportation easier for workers, more affordable for workers. We can make housing more affordable for workers, and we can make dental care with our PharmaClear plan. We can make it easier for workers and help small businesses with their insurance plans. We know many small businesses, they have insurance plans, benefit plans for their employees. We want to be able to alleviate the burden on that with our pharmacare, our dental care plans, and also to have $10 a day childcare. These are all affordability measures that help the owners of the businesses as well as the workers.
Very well. Yeah, these are all good plans. I'm hoping that when you get reelected, we can actually have these in plan. Now,
Mhm.
reconciliation with indigenous community
Mhm.
is like they are among us and is ongoing commitment. What concrete steps will you take to support indigenous communities' rights and self-determination in our area?
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is a real area that the NDP is concerned about, I'm concerned about, and so are locals. We know that we are now at a stage where the Conservatives and the Liberals are talking about resource extraction projects without consultation and without consent. And we know how this has affected Indigenous women and girls since the first round of resource extraction 100 and some years ago. And I'm proud to say that the NDP was the party that brought forward the red dress alert. It is a protective and defense mechanism for First Nations, Indigenous, Métis women who go missing. And we know this is a reality that's alongside resource extraction and colonialism. And as you talk about reconciliation, it's very important to the NDP and to all Canadians that with industry and with expansion on whether it's critical mineral expansion or water, which I'm very concerned about, that the United States will be coming up for our water,
Mhm.
is that we understand how this impacts Indigenous communities disproportionately and that we defend their rights to resources and safety in this country.
Mhm. Well, someone has to be their voice as well. So, as a local
Mm.
media, we want to be their voice too. Um,
And I really appreciate the coverage that you do give on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, environmental protection is a major concern for our many residents. What will you do to ensure stronger climate actions, policies, and protect our local environment?
Well, we are so lucky here in Port Moody, Coquitlam, and Moranbell to have such beautiful nature all around us,
Mhm.
whether it's the inlet, the trees, the trails, wild salmon is very important to the folks of Port Moody, Coquitlam. So we do. We want to defend it. We want to maintain it for the next generation. And this is certainly the work that the NDP have long been committed to. Let's get people onto transit. Let's invest in transit to reduce emissions. Let's protect the inlet. So I was recently out on Burrard Inlet, and we know that we have an increase in the oil tankers that are coming into the Burrard Inlet with the expansion on TMX. And although we have some protections in place, it's not fully protected.
Mhm.
And the federal government, the Liberals have not put together a catastrophic plan for human health and how our shoreline will be protected. So this is work that I've already started in Ottawa.
Mhm.
There's also 40 organizations and groups across the Lower Mainland that are highlighting to the Liberal government that the protections are not good enough, both to human health and to the shoreline and to wildlife. So we need a lot. We have a lot of work to do there. The other thing, it just is on. We've all faced the smoke, the heat, and this is something that I'm very concerned about with the Conservative government is that they don't accept that climate change is real, that human behavior can impact climate, and we really need to make sure that we keep the Conservatives out of Port Moody, Coquitlam, and Moranbell as a representative, because our nature is way too important for us and for the next generation to let the Conservatives expand on their resource extraction, tankers through the inlet, and just a total disregard for climate change in general.
Mm-hmm. You did talk about the other parties. Before I ask my next question, I want to know what are the key differences in the policies plans between NDPs and those other parties?
Yeah, right now we are at peak corporate greed in both Canada and the United States, and we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing it in the United States. I mean, they've reached the element where the richest Americans are now looking to take over Canada. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the income inequality is huge, and this is the big difference between the U.S. and Canada as well. The U.S. and Canada has a two-party system. Sorry, the U.S. has a two-party system. Canada does not.
Mm-hmm.
The NDP is that party that is there for the people. They're not there for the billionaires, the largest corporations. They are the balance for the people. And certainly our policies are very different. We're not there for billionaires. We're not there for big corporations. We're there for you, your family, and our local communities.
Mm-hmm. Very well. You talked about United States. Now,
Mm.
the United States President Trump has imposed tariffs on key Canadian industries in the past, now impacting our economy, our local jobs. If you're reelected, how will you and NDP work to protect Canadian businesses and workers from these trade barriers? And what strategy will you push in for the Canada and US trade negotiations?
Well, it's our job as members of parliament to defend Canadians and to defend our economy, and I'm right there. And if I think about the work that we did as an NDPers in the 44th Parliament, we were able to secure what's called a sustainable jobs plan. And I can say that in that sustainable jobs plan, we talked about what does it need to look like to make sure that the next generation of workers have their as good of wages, have pensions, have those safety nets that workers did back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. It's only been over the last 20 years or so that corporate greed has taken away wages and protections from workers. So we have the a strategic jobs plan, and it was 16 weeks that the Conservatives fought us on it, filibustered us on it, but we were able to secure that. So the NDP has a plan in place for what it needs to look like in the future. For now, we need to bring back manufacturing jobs. We need to bring back more of the um, made in Canada jobs that we shipped out of this country so many decades ago. And that is the NDP's plan, always has been, to have Canadian made, Canadian built, whether it's food, medication, um, housing, home building materials, whether it's forestry. These are the things that we should be doing here in Canada. Even our car manufacturing. We will always want to drive cars. And
Mhm.
as we move into new fuels for cars, there's so much opportunity for Canadian jobs. And Sherry, you know that one of the things that I focus on a lot is care.
Mhm.
And I think about we have an aging population. I'm the critic for persons with disabilities. We know that care is an important aspect of any economy. You mentioned it earlier, Sherry, about the childcare. We know that affordable childcare lets more families and parents get back into the workforce. I want to be sure that those that are offering care, whether it's for children, aging parents, or a person with a disability, that they have fair wages and fair access to benefits that they deserve.
Yeah. To me, it's like you're protecting the whole Canada, but more especially your writings that you're doing actually, Port Moody, Coquitlam, and Belcara, and more. And you're dedicated your life to protecting our community, and I'm thankful for that. I
Thank you.
know that you've been around and among Persian community, Iranian community. Now, what have you learned from the Iranian and Persian community, and how do you view their contribution to our community, Bonita?
Hmm. So we are so fortunate in Port Moody, Coquitlam to have such a strong and active Persian and Iranian community here. I have benefited so greatly personally, being able to learn the culture, to be exposed to the culture, and I raise this now because I'm a grandma, and my grandkid is 2 years old now, and just recently at her childcare, they had a half scene. They had a
Oh,
Persian
at
teacher
the
there. They had a Persian teacher there, and they put together a half scene. And the kids were all around. They were all in their, between 18 months and 2.5 years old. They were all around, and they had the beautiful display. And instead of the live goldfish, they had a bowl of goldfish crackers, which I thought was very cute. But it was a way for many kids that might never get to Iran,
Mhm.
might never travel, might never have access to know about this, to learn about another culture as early as age 2 years old.
Yeah, that's the beauty
To
about
me,
diversity. Yeah,
exactly. To
yeah.
me, as a grandmother, I was like, if I can't believe I had to wait till I was 50. Here is my granddaughter being able to hear about it at 2 years old. So I think the impact that you can't express, the importance of the diversity and the importance of making space and funding, such as your channel here, is so important, that we have these hyper local cultural news channels, and they just, I can't understate how much that builds community and how important it is here in Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Well, thank you. Now, as an MP, uh, what you have accomplished? I know that you have, touched base a little bit of everything that you did so far, but what are your goals? Do you still have and hope to achieve if you get reelected?
Yes, thanks so much. Well, as a party and on the national stage, as I said, we were able to advance the largest expansion in healthcare. So that was the pharmacare and the dental care. So I want to continue with that. We know that we want to expand pharmacare. I was just at an announcement today for the NDP that we want those next level of life-saving drugs to be free for folks. There are way too many seniors in our community who are skipping medication that could keep them healthier, or cutting their medication in half. And we know that's an expense to not just their health, but also to our community and hospitals. So definitely want to continue with that work. The work around protecting workers and defending workers is very important to me and to the NDP. On a personal level, this is something that I feel strongly about, and I know you know this, Sherry, is gender equity. I'm very much about making sure that no matter your gender, that you have equal access to opportunities in Canada. And I want to talk a little bit about flight attendants, because I know many Iranians, many Persians are on flights very often. Flight attendants work up to 1 week a month free. They don't get paid. They don't get paid for some delays. They don't get paid if there's different situations where anytime the wheels are down, before the wheels are down, and before the wheels are up on any flight, flight attendants are not being paid.
Mhm.
And this is unfair, discriminatory practices from the labor code. And I really want to see that changed. So when I get elected, I really want to make sure that flight attendants, no matter where they are, who they're working for in Canada, that they are paid for every hour they work.
Mhm.
And I'll close this one on housing, because housing has been such an important factor in Port Moody, Coquitlam. And I really decided to go after rental housing and the unfair practices of the largest corporations jacking up people's rents, displacing folks. It's really uh, it causes many problems in a community. So I am actively have gone after these unfair practices in the housing sector in rental, the artificial intelligence price fixing, which is now being prosecuted in the United States. I'm going to continue with that work. I managed to get the Competition Bureau is investigating price fixing right now using artificial intelligence, and that's part of my work. And I'm going to continue to try to get rents lower for people here in Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Well, thank you. Now, what is your message to our viewers for April 28, 2025 election?
Yeah, well, thank you, Sherry. And I guess this is the time to get political. But, really, the only way to keep the good wins that Canadians have had around pharmacare, dental care, child care, even the maternity leave that we have, employment insurance that we have, pensions that we have. All of that came from an NDP minority government. It's always been the best kind of government. So there's kind of two things to talk about. One is that the NDP, a minority government with the NDP with the balance of power, is the most successful governments in Canada, and I ask folks to vote NDP. In Port Moody, Coquitlam specifically, it's always a race between the Conservatives and the NDP. And right now, over 70% of residents of Port Moody, Coquitlam do not want the risk of the Conservatives. They hear too much of the Trump rhetoric coming from the Conservatives. They don't want cuts to the programs that they depend on, like pharmacare, dental care, and even childcare. And so the only way to defeat the Conservatives in Port Moody, Coquitlam is to vote NDP. Anything else will get us a Conservative.
Thank you, Bonita, for joining us today and sharing your insight into your vision and NDP's plans. We appreciate your time and support for our community.
Well, thank you so much, Sherry, for this. And one thing I want to add is that from now until election time, my MP office is still open. We are still taking calls and doing work. So we do a lot of work on family reunification. So please do reach out to my office. Sasha in my office can help you over this time.
Here you have it, folks. April 28th to 25, time to go and vote. And again, thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please email us at the Skyrise Media Society at gmail.com. Thank you for watching. Sherry Soltani, Skyrise Media Society.